Good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock. Welcome to Housing and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Panel. There's no fire drill expected, so if the alarm does sound, please leave via the nearest fire exits and gather across the street at Lloyd's Bank. The meeting is also being recorded and will be published on the Council's YouTube site. I'd first like to welcome Mr. Anthony Morgan, who is a new co-opted member of the panel. Thank you. I haven't received any apologies. Is there anything? Anybody? I've got apologies now. No. Okay. So can we confirm the minutes of the previous meeting that was held on the 25th of September last year as a true and accurate record? Would anyone like to confirm? No. Does anybody have any comments? Any problems? No? Okay.
Sorry, Chair. Go back to the previous agenda item. Councillor Sharon Dillon is running late. She's on her way.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Christian. Can I receive any declarations of interest that are not otherwise declared on the declaration of interest schedule that can be viewed via the link in the agenda? No. Thank you. I've received notification of the speakers as followed for agenda item number 7, County Councillor Keith Condacourt, Leslie Nelson, Matt Alexander, Heather Kincaid, Councillor Michelle Condacourt, Councillor Chris Wilson and Councillor Rob Rose. For item number 9, we have Councillor Michelle Condacourt. For item number 10, we have County Councillor Keith Condacourt and Councillor Michelle Condacourt. So I'll take those with each item, and each speaker has 3 minutes. Item number 6, questions to Cabinet. Does the panel wish to ask the Cabinet members in attendance any questions? These questions need to be within the remit of the panel. No questions. Okay. Item number 7. This is the motion from Extraordinary Council. Before we start the item, I want to remind everyone attending that comments and questions must be respectful and that when speaking, we keep on the matter being discussed. This item was brought forward to an Extraordinary Council held on the 16th of September and was approved. Following this, it was agreed at the previous OSP meeting to be actioned tonight. As per the motion, representatives were sought from those organisations listed. I can confirm that tonight we have the following officers in attendance. Inspector Ryan Walker from Warwickshire Police. Mr. John Coleman, Director for Children and Families from Warwickshire County Council. Mr. Dale Bridgewater, Warwickshire County Council Cabinet Member for Community Safety. Miss Dawn Dawson, NBBC Strategic Director, Housing and Communities. Mr. Abu Malik, NBBC Community and Community Safety Manager. Representatives from the Home Office and Serco are not in attendance. Before I bring the panel in to ask questions, we have a few public speakers. So I will go through them now, and you have 3 minutes of speaking time. And the first speaker is County Councillor Keith Condacore. And after each speaker, I'll ask the panel if they have any points of clarification. Thank you. County Councillor Condacore, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's actually most disappointing that the Home Office and Serco aren't here, because they're actually the people we want to talk about the procedures and the wraparound for people staying in the borough whilst they're being assessed for their asylum claims. Quite obviously, there's a large number of people in every part of the country, and when you look at the stats, some places have a bit more than others. But one thing that's really noticeable about Nuneaton is we're a friendly place. We've got a lot of positives in terms of having people who are asylum seekers here, but there's also not the support there would be in somewhere like Coventry. So I think if we are having people here, we need to actually make sure we've got the wraparound support. We obviously need to make sure we know who's here and some of the problems we've had, lessons are learnt from them. And I say it's really disappointing that Serco haven't come to explain what goes on, what facilities there are, etc. And then this also ties in with a later item we've got on the agenda, which is the HMO working group, because obviously we need our HMOs to work correctly, have enough space, and how they're managed in terms of managing what happens in the community as well. And as far as I can tell, the HMO working group has produced absolutely nothing in a year, which is really disappointing. I think HMO standards, licensing, etc., is part of the what we need to get right. I think I can't say a lot because Serco aren't here, and I think Serco should be having a meeting with county and borough councillors so we can ask some questions.
Thank you, Councillor, and I can confirm that Mrs. Dawson will be giving us an update on the progress of the working group. Our next speaker is, sorry, that's later on in the agenda, is Leslie Nelson, please. No, thank you, and I'm sorry to hear your story. Does anyone have any points of clarification? Could I just ask which court case you were referring to? I didn't quite catch that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Smith, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering if we could get a copy of the incidents that have been reported here, so we can get the details from the police and from the court. Maybe share them with all the councillors.
Inspector Walker, do you want to just come in there?
Yeah, thank you, Leslie. Nice to see you again. I was going to say that the minutes are very beneficial. It's a very thorough, obviously, meeting. Minutes do reflect what was discussed. Was there some learning? Was there some learning to come from the incident? Absolutely. We're looking to build trust and obviously strengthen community cohesion throughout Nuneaton, and Priory Street is just a starting point. We've come a long way since those meetings. What I would like to happen is to undo the work we've done. So you're right, the court case is due in court next week, and I've already got a structured plan in place to address those issues to build on the reassurance. The CCTV camera will remain in the street. I'll be recommending to the local council to maintain the street lighting, upon the evenings. Also a structured patrol plan through visible policing, that's boots on the ground. What I would like to do is survey the residents to understand the impact it's had on them and how we can work forward to address further issues. Because the support doesn't stop there after this incident, we want to continue that relationship. I know my team tomorrow, I've got a meeting with Jane, the new Neighbourhood Watch Coordinator. Several issues have been raised, which may not be a police issue, but we're there to act as a support agency as well. It's about just providing that enhanced support to the community.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So, Inspector, are you involved with those other streets? Yeah.
Webb Street's an adjoining street. We're linking in, like I say. The engagement doesn't stop there. We have got a wider piece of work where we are looking to survey residents firsthand by knocking doors, just to address those issues.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that reply. And thank you for your contribution. Thank you. Great. Our next speaker is, Councillor Smith.
So, are we going to get the details of the crime numbers and the court case from the officers?
Sorry. What I would say is it's a live investigation at the moment, so there's only so much we can obviously disclose. Everyone has the right to a fair trial. With it being Monday, we certainly can't disclose what's going on with the investigation because it may jeopardise it. But what we can do is you can have a freedom of information request after the incident. However, it will be redacted because only certain things are disclosable. And you might get declined the request, not being the victim of the crime.
So presumably the minutes of the council meetings between the residents and the council officers, will they be available to the panel or the councillors?
I think Kelly can get those, can't you? Yeah, thank you. Go on. Councillor Bird.
Yes, thank you. I know this is all tied up with HMOs, which is also on the agenda tonight, but the point of concern that's well, always concerned me personally is the fact that, and I did raise this at a council meeting some months ago, these asylum seekers are resident in these properties. It seems with no control over them whatsoever, and they're free to do as they like. Do we actually keep a register of the names and identities of the residents that are occupying these places? You know, where we live in our houses, we're on the electoral roll, we have all sorts of bills and stuff like that there, we can prove our identities, but these people, are they faceless, or are they actually listed and registered as?
Right. I think we'll come back to that if that's okay. At the moment, we're just getting points of clarification. Yeah, no, we'll come back. Remind me if I forget, but we'll come back. Thank you. So our next speaker is Mr. Matt Alexander. And before you, who is he here? Is that you, sir? Could I just ask if you live and work in the borough? No. Where do you live, my love? So I'm not. Could you just explain why you're here? This isn't. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Oh, you're on the speakers list. Okay. Do you want to sit down then? Well, is there a medical reason why you can't sit?
What's your purpose for being here this evening? You've just been given the opportunity to speak and you've said you're not speaking. What is your purpose for being here this evening?
Right. Our next speaker in that case then is Heather Kincaid. And Heather, you have 3 minutes, and afterwards we'll see if we need any points of clarification. Heather? The microphone's coming, Heather. You want to have a point of clarification? I can confirm, Miss Kincaid, that the HMO working group will be looking at issues like that. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Smith.
As far as I understand this, the list of HMOs is a public record and is available to view at the council house in person. But I think recently, within the last year, we've not published it anymore, are we? I think so. Just so people know that it is actually public record at the moment.
Thank you, Heather. Our next speaker is Councillor Michelle Condacor. Thank you.
Thank you. There are a few things that I wanted to mention and really sort of get some answers for. I was actually really concerned to hear the earlier resident saying, you know, that Serco didn't actually seem to know who were in the properties that they were leasing and didn't even give, you know, residents didn't have any contact number for, you know, if there were any concerns or whatever. And that, I think, is a massive failing and, you know, of great concern because, you know, that's at the core of some of these issues, knowing where to turn, who can actually help and things. And, you know, I have a lot of sympathy, you know, for people in any HMO and things. I don't think they're the ideal accommodation in a lot of cases. And so, you know, concerns will arise and what have you, and it's really important that people know where to turn and things. My general points I wanted to make and really find out were sort of within the, say, Nuneaton itself or Bedworth separately, although I think most of it is centred around Nuneaton, is, you know, how many, I don't expect people to say where the sessions and things are held and things, but how many sessions and places are available where people who are claiming asylum can actually go and get help, maybe help with English, just to understand sort of what the expected behaviour in our country is, because it's a massive change for, you know, a lot of people and things. And, you know, how are they supervised? Is there any record of, you know, that they're actually attending these sessions? You know, things like that, how they are monitored. And I believe the council receives from the government an asylum dispersal grant. So I'd really like to know what that is actually spent on. I believe that's split between the county council and the borough council and things. But what exactly is that spent on? Because if I understand correctly, it's the Home Office actually pay for the accommodation through Serco or whoever and things. So what is that money actually spent on to actually help people, you know, but both the residents and the asylum seekers themselves to actually, you know, assimilate, get to know each other? Because when there are incidents like the one that happened last I think it was in the summer with the rape and what have you and things, I mean, it's just devastating. It just, you know, lives are ruined all round. You know, the asylum seekers, these very young people, their lives are ruined. The victims and families' lives, you know, are ruined. So, you know, it's so important that we get these things right, you know, just so people can get on with their lives, you know, happily and safely.
Thank you, Michelle. So the next speaker is Councillor Chris Wilson.
I'll use the other. Thank you, Chair. I'm really disgusted actually, that the Home Office and Serco haven't attended tonight, because I think they have a large part to play in what goes on the ground, as well as, you know, at the strategic and policy level. And I hope that the OSP will ensure that its displeasure on behalf of the residents of the borough is communicated to those that be in those areas. I hope, Chair, that we'll be able to get a bit more information about risk management of these asylum claims. I think that is key in this, because, and it's something I alluded to in the full council meeting, if someone is on probation, for example, they have to report in regularly, they have meetings that they have to go to, targets that they have to meet, etc. And I don't see why that principle shouldn't apply to those with asylum, because by their definition, numbers of these will not have formal identity documents when they come into the country. There have to be investigations, and it just seems basic to me that there should be some kind of active and continual risk management by the parties concerned. If that is happening, we need to know. If it isn't happening, something's obviously gone wrong in my view, which has led to some of these atrocious incidents. I am also slightly disappointed that and I understand why Inspector Walker is here to deal with some of the issues on the ground, but there is also a strategic level at the police, which I think a more senior police officer should have been here for. Those of us who had to respond to press and residents during the time, I felt that there was a political deafness from the police at a senior level. Police officers are not political. Absolutely right, but they have to acknowledge and be able to operate in a political environment. And some of the key decisions which were made at a senior level, to us on the ground here and locally, were woefully inadequate. Messages going out, councillors are being briefed. We weren't. We're then being accused of withholding information. We weren't. We didn't have it. And I know when I had an incident in my ward a number of years ago with a murder, police contacted me instantly as a local ward member. Great. But this became not just a local issue, not even a regional issue, it became a national issue. And all councillors in this chamber, regardless of political party, were brought into this. And we need to know what is going on to reassure our communities. And even the then Home Secretary raised issues about the police's decisions. So I think we need to ensure that our senior police officers are capable and are operating in a political environment to make sure that local communities are getting the services they need, because poor people like Inspector Ryan deal with the stuff on the ground, but there are decisions way above him. Thank you, Chair.
Comment on that, Inspector Ryan.
Really sorry, Mr. Wilson. I missed half of that, but I think I got kind of the message, what you were trying to outline there in terms of communication, the breakdown in communication. What I would say, those two-way dialogues are open. It'll be a case of us notifying one point of contact within the council, who would then disseminate that information. I assure you that that did take place. So whether there is a breakdown in communication on the council's behalf, that I can't really comment on, but we do have streams in place to notify people of.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or points of clarification? In that case, our final speaker is Councillor Rob Rose. Please go ahead, Rob.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's really heartening to hear those stories, and I think that there's an overall message about public safety and how resources are being allocated. If a certain area or a certain issue needs to be attended to, that means that there needs to be a certain focus of the resources going for that. I also picked up, if I understood, there was certain issues on invasion of privacy by media members. I mean, which I don't know if anyone else noticed. I think that's something which was new to me, and I perhaps would encourage kind of to pick it up as well. I do apologize, it wasn't coordinated with Councillor Kondako, but actually I had the same question regarding the asylum dispersal grant, which I understand comes from Home Office, and I understand that at least half of it goes to the Warwickshire County Council. So I think my question is more like in light of of the knowledge exchange, and in terms of where the support is going, how it addresses any issues. And I understand that the grant can be also spent not just perhaps on the asylum seekers themselves, but also on the members, on issues relating to the members of public. I was just interested what steps has been taken, specifically around in light of what has happened, and what information exchange or performance related data is actually being exchanged between the services, including between what Warwickshire County Council does deliver on that money, and actually what what we know here in the Borough Council about that. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that brings us into the next part. Do any of the representatives here wish to reply to Council? Yeah, go ahead, John. Mr. John Coleman from Warwickshire County Council.
I'm John Coleman. I'm the Director for Children and Family Services, who provide elements of some of the support that you're referring to. So the grant is split, but essentially the borough and district councils make a decision individually about how much of that grant they provide to the county council. Nuneaton and Bedworth give 50% to the county council, and what we do with that is spend that on the ESOL courses, English courses. We also commission Equip, who provide an induction for asylum seekers. That grant is not just for asylum seekers, it is also for other types of asylum and refugee dispersal. So, for example, Ukraine families or Afghan families who have come through different schemes. And some of that money is spent on, again, English courses and induction into the UK. I guess kind of linked question from other people was those sessions are voluntary. We can't force people to attend those. And the county council don't receive any details from Serco about individual details of asylum seekers. We receive numbers on a regular basis, probably at least once a quarter, but we don't receive any other information from the Home Office or Serco on the number of asylum seekers placed or the details of the asylum seekers placed in an area. And that, we ourselves and the police regularly discuss that issue. If we do have any concerns about asylum seekers, we will always raise those with Serco and with the police as well, as appropriate. So just a few comments there that pick up a couple of the points that people have made.
Can I ask then, please, is that funding adequate, or does it very quickly dry? You know, is it spent quite quickly, and then we have to provide our own? Yeah. Come back on any of that, Rob?
No, I mean, just a very quick one. As I said, my understanding was that that grant can be spent on communities as a whole, not kind of on a specific numbers, as you mentioned, like training courses and all of that. So I think the point I was getting at, you know, if a certain communities, like a street, is suffering from certain issues, you know, have we looked at potentially spending that money to focus that specifically at those areas, you know, specifically to target some of the things which, you know, essentially, you know, we're talking about people's homes and how they feel at home, and they need to be feeling at home wherever, you know, they live, and this is potentially one way of at least somehow, you know, ensuring that. Thanks.
Mrs. Dawson will come back on that. Do any panel members wish to speak? Councillor Bird, you came in earlier.
Yes, thank you. I suppose it's getting back to my previous question. I find the statement from the County Council representative quite shocking, really, that they deal in numbers and they have no details whatsoever, the people that they're dealing with. They've been let loose into our community. Do we know what background they come from? Do we know if they're murderers in their own country? You know, I know it sounds dramatic, but this is the sort of thing that we're facing in our societies today. You know, we put criminals in prison in our country if they've broken the law, but these people could be escaping from, say, war zones and that, but they could be on the run from justice in their own countries, you know, and I find it amazing that we haven't got a record of names, dates of birth and other details of people that are living in properties in our borough. I can't, you know, I just can't get my head around that one, and I find it absolutely astounding that the police have got no intelligence on it. I mean, I'm a former police officer. I was in the force many years, and we always had intelligence on people that were a threat to our society that lived in our borough, and you know, and we were always observant, and it was our absolute duty to protect our society and our residents, and that was it. You swore an oath to the Queen to protect lives, and I find it hard to understand how we've got all these unknowns, these faceless people running around in our society, and nobody knows who the hell they are. Thank you.
I suspect it's higher up the food chain, but do you want to say anything about that, Inspector Walker or Mr. Coleman?
Yeah, I mean, I understand your questions. It's a shame the Home Office and Serco aren't here to answer that fully. And it's a question that ourselves from the County Council and the police do talk to Serco and the Home Office about. What happens in the way the system works is that when someone enters the UK, they are interviewed by Border Force or the Immigration Service. If that raises any concerns, then they do raise that issue with Serco, and then Serco are the people who are responsible for supporting asylum seekers and essentially managing that risk. If there were risks like you described, then obviously they would take other action and inform relevant authorities about that. But the information that Warwickshire County Council receive and Warwickshire Police receive about individual asylum seekers is essentially, you know, very limited, other than what we know locally.
Thank you, Chair. As a former police officer, I'm quite astounded that Councillor Bird actually operates on a presumption of guilt. You know, in this country we have a presumption of innocence, and how can we apply a presumption of guilt on somebody we don't know? I don't know the inspector over there. I can't presume he's guilty of anything. I've never met him before in my life. I just find it, this attitude is actually reprehensible.
Well, I'll explain my attitude then, if that's the case. It's not a presumption of guilt. It's knowing what threat, if any, these people are bringing into our society. We've already seen instances, and you read it in the press every day. We've got local criminals. We've always had local criminals, but we've always had intelligence on various people that are operating, criminal gangs, etc., where it's not a matter of assuming guilt. It's protecting our public and the asylum seekers that are innocent. And how often have we seen criminal gangs that got prostitution, the imported drugs, the defilement of children up in Rochdale? How many times have we got to read this in the newspaper? And this is because there is absolutely no control.
Councillor Bird, can I just say that the Rochdale grooming gangs were not asylum seekers. So let's not, you know,
Okay.
mix that up.
I'll
If you could just
withdraw then,
retract
but
that,
at
please.
the same time,
Thank you.
this is my main concern anyway.
In my humble opinion, anybody that arrives illegally on a boat, which they are illegally arriving, should be shipped straight back, put on an airplane and sent straight back.
Can you just keep, if you've got, look, I said at the start, didn't I? Be respectful. If you can't be civil, you can't be respectful, then please just keep your opinion to yourself.
As far as I'm concerned, I am respectful.
Well, I find it offensive. I find it offensive.
Okay, please yourself.
Keep it to yourself. Councillor Smith.
Sorry, he's already withdrawn. Can you withdraw those remarks? Because it's again, it's presumption of guilt. As far as I understand it, whether you arrive in this country illegally or not, if you claim asylum, it doesn't matter how you arrived. You're claiming asylum. There are no legal routes into the country. The legality of arriving by boat or not is neither here nor there, and it certainly isn't anything to do with asylum seekers and HMOs in Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, which is landlocked.
I'd just like to point out that, just for everyone, that all the HMOs do not have just asylum seekers in them, just for everyone to understand, because we're not going to say that every HMO has asylum seekers. They're for everyone, not just for those people. Okay.
Miss Kincaid pointed that out as well. We do have HMOs where we have people with disabilities and other types of issues, yeah. And basically people who are just skint and can only afford one room, to rent one room with a bed in it. It's very common nowadays because the cost of housing is so expensive. Councillor Smith.
Just for the record, I actually lived in in HMOs until I was the age of 32, I think. So it's not uncommon for young professionals, white men, middle-aged men to be living in HMOs. So with that out of the way, and to get some more constructive subject, in terms of the asylum seeker dispersal grant that we get from the government, I think if you're an asylum seeker, you can't work, you don't have any money to actually do any constructive activities. So does any of that money go towards giving asylum seekers anything to do? I'm thinking maybe we could spend it on memberships to local sports clubs so they could actually exercise, be constructive, meet people, be sociable, and I'd just see that more constructive use of the money. Is that something that's been investigated? Do you respond to the needs of the actual people themselves? I mean, are the asylum seekers actually asked what they want to do and what activities they want to actually be given? In terms of forcing people to do activities, and I've had contact with some asylum seekers, and all I want to do is play football, play cricket, do activities, but basically try and keep fit, try and keep active, if not for their physical health, for their mental health. So have we looked specifically at, for example, a passport to leisure for asylum seekers in the borough so they can use the council facilities?
You want to make that a formal recommendation to carry forward?
I'm happy to propose it as a recommendation if somebody's for me.
I'm happy to support that. Any objections? No. Okay. Well, no, and we've got Kelly's inquiry as well, haven't we? Yeah. The earlier inquiry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. Thank you. So, sorry, Councillor Finch.
Yeah, just a quick one. I do apologise, but I am going to have to shoot off now because I've got another meeting at 7 o'clock. So I just wanted to let you know, Chair. So thank you.
Thank you for coming. I think we've about finished anyway, unless anyone has any further comments or questions. Councillor Smith.
Before Councillor Finch goes, the other uses of HMOs, for example, housing foster children, obviously it's under your remit as the children's portfolio holder. Are you aware of any issues that local HMOs have had from local residents that have been housing children? Have you heard of any prejudices or any demonstrations, for example?
Thank you for that question. But when I first became a councillor, one of the first things I dealt with was a children's home being put up. There was many people that objected, and it actually come to this plan. Well, it didn't come to this planning committee because the person that wanted to buy it pulled out due to public pressure. So yes, people did assume things about children in those homes. But the point that Councillor Bird mentioned about asylum seekers in HMOs, we've seen significant issues across not just Nuneaton and Bedworth, but the entire county, with crimes happening in Leamington and in Nuneaton.
Can you be specific? If you're going to make sweeping statements, you're going to have to back it up with evidence.
Yeah, so the case that happened in Leamington, as you may know, that happened in the news about 2 asylum seekers raping a young girl. So, this is what happens when you let undocumented people in.
Councillor Finch, I think, you said you're going to go. I think you need to, really.
So yeah, I mean, you obviously wanted off the question. I was wondering if I could just quickly follow up on the original question. I was wondering if Councillor Finch feels that him actually demonstrating with the residents against those children or that HMO that was basically putting aside for his own portfolio children.
Great question, and I will answer that quickly because that's what I was asked when I first got into office. But at that time, I was not portfolio because we didn't get administration yet. I was just a local division councillor. But now I do believe that there are places where there shouldn't be children homes because some are inappropriate. A 2-bed terraced house is not necessarily appropriate. Where maybe a 3-bed semi-detached house in a cul-de-sac, maybe. There's different areas that fit different needs. I wouldn't just assume that every house is perfect for everybody. So some things are different and you have to take it up with a different approach. But that's life, isn't it? You can't just think that everywhere is perfect and we've got all this money. So we have to look where it's appropriate for those children.
I think we'll round that item up now and go on to the next item, but we'll have a comfort break first. So if anyone wishes to leave, and so the stuff that you wrote, Rose, we're going to bring the minutes back to the next meeting. Yeah, okay. And thank you for coming and making us aware of what's been going on. And I just want to thank Mr. Coleman and Inspector Walker as well for coming today. Thank you. I think they're going anyway. So we'll come back to meeting then. So, thank you. And we. Right. So we'll come back to the meeting then. So we did raise a recommendation for cabinet earlier of the suggestion to recommend the passport to leisure to the asylum seekers, and we've just been asked if we would like to take a vote, and I'm happy to take a vote on that if you want to. Yep. That's, so you're seconding, yeah, okay. So if you want to raise your hand if you're in favour of that, please. 5 against. 2, 3, 4. So it's 5 for and 4 against. So that's carried. We'll recommend that to cabinet. To item number 8. And actually, just hang on. So we have a speaker who runs HMOs, and so I've made the decision that we will move to item number 10, the Houses of Multiple Occupation Working Group. And if you would like to speak, then you can go if you want, and we'll go on to the integrated performance reports after. Okay. Yeah, go. You can, yeah, if you wish. Is that okay? Yeah. Do you want to give your summary then, please? So we go to the speakers, and do you want to speak, Russ, and then the panel can ask points of clarification if necessary. Thank you. And yeah, that's something we'll certainly look at within the group. You've given us some useful information there. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Keith Condacor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Obviously, being a county councillor, I talk a lot with my colleagues from Warwick, and they've had years of problems with HMOs, which have massively reduced now they've actually got more licensing, etc., down in Warwick. It took them about a decade to actually transform the market there, and obviously a lot of their market's a student market, but obviously they still have streets that are totally dominated by HMOs. So I totally agree with the speaker before you. Actually putting decent license fees in so you can actually have decent regulation is really good. It actually means the market will weed out the poor players, the people who aren't providing decent homes, and it will provide our people better places to live in the borough. I mean, I probably lived in a HMO when I was in a multi-occupancy house in London for a year when I was a young trainee engineer. So most people end up going through that sort of multiple occupancy before they get a girlfriend and get a house and work their way up. You start out at HMOs. So it shouldn't be anything that people are ashamed of. I'm absolutely appalled by certain radical political parties that are saying there's going to be 47 HMOs opening in the year and it's all dreadful. It's not dreadful. We actually should celebrate the good ones, raise standards, and actually not have these scaremongers saying there's 47, everyone's going to be murdered and raped. What we actually need is we need to know who the people to contact are. Like Serco's obviously seems to be appalling landlord in certain places, but we need to drive standards up. And I say they've done it in Warwick. The councillors from Warwick said we can just copy a lot of their documents, so it's not like reinventing the wheel. We obviously need to remove the word student in a few places. And about Article 4, I think there's probably a few places like bits of Stockingford where there are places where we might need some planning stuff just to stop the over one street becoming all HMOs, etc. And we do have issues with things like park, etc. But I'm all for raising standards. We had a planning application last week or the week before for HMO in my division. And one of the things they said was, oh, well, there's a park opposite. Well, we won't need to give them any space in the HMO for their social activities. They can just go down Coronation Walk. Coronation Walk are just trees and grass. It's miles before you get to the first bench. Yeah, we need these places to have amenity space in the vicinity of the HMOs, particularly if they're large ones, so that people aren't just crammed in their bedrooms all the time. Yeah, it's about raising standards and having enough space in the HMO so people aren't like in a prison cell. I think there's rules for prison cells and there's probably rules for HMOs, and we want our HMO rules to be far better than a prison cell. We want them to be have all the nice space for them to actually enjoy living in the Nuneaton and Bedworth. So raise standards, and we were told we couldn't have more licensing because it costs money. I think you can if you actually charge enough for your licenses. Thank you.
Thank you. Point, Councillor.
Yes. I support that about licence. And let me just add that I have got absolutely nothing against HMOs. I lived in one myself many years ago, and I remember the old days when state lodges into them. So I appreciate that there is an absolute need for it. It is a starting point for a lot of young people and students or whatever. The only thing that's really worried me with the discussion tonight is that where the properly run HMOs, those people will be listed, paying rent, they'll have records, and they'll have like a bit of a contract, I would imagine, between the HMO owner, same as they do when they rent property off the council. That's fine. I haven't got a problem at all with that. I believe that they should be up to a fair standard. It should come under the remit of the fair housing regime that the council runs. That it's livable, it's kept up to a certain standard. The people that are living in them are not being exploited. And yes, I would fully support a fully licensed.
Anybody else have any councillors?
Been on the working group for HMOs. I seem to remember we did discuss the actual licensing number requirements, but I can't remember what the conclusion was. Can you remember at all?
Yeah, because
To speak now.
Yeah.
Go on now.
I mean, my gripe with the HMO working group is just that we're not going fast enough, and we need to get the next meeting scheduled ASAP so we can actually move things forward. What we discussed in the private sector manager, whatever, I can't remember what her title is. I mean, she said, oh yeah, we do inspections, blah, blah, blah. And then we said, but it was established that they were limited to how many inspections and things they could do by income to actually have the staff to do it. So by increasing the fees for licensing HMOs, they would have more money to employ more people to do more inspections. I think it'd be a win-win situation for the borough.
Yeah, thank you. All good points that we can feed into our recommendations. Yep.
One point to clarify, an HMO resident who pays rent and that for the accommodation, do they have to pay council tax?
I believe it's an all-in-one fee. Is that? Do you want to answer that, Mr. Dybel? Is that correct? Yeah, so, Council. I don't think we've got that information to hand. Dawn's actually covering for Sharon, and Sharon would know the answer to that.
I think basically what it is, we've got to have form the rest of the working group. The agenda.
Yeah.
As an outsider looking in, if we've got somebody from the industry that's saying this is a route to take, yes, it's going to cost my business a lot of money, safeguards my income and safeguards the community.
Yeah. It's something that we'll discuss as the group. And sorry, Miss Councillor Smith.
I'm just wondering if it would be worth inviting. Sorry, I've forgotten your name. Can we invite Russ to the next meeting?
I didn't realise that, Mr. Dybel. I apologise for that. Sharon, Dylan, Sharon.
Sorry, I'm not in the working group, but if obviously it sounds like a very positive way forward. If this was to be implemented, would that then would that be compulsory for every existing one to apply? And if they don't, what would the penalties would be? Because you're always going to get some resistance. I mean, is it like it's not a voluntary thing? They have to have that license, otherwise we would then sort of shut them down or whatever.
Just getting back to the discussion we had earlier, we've got HMOs elect private people, residents and stuff, and then we've got these HMOs that are being used by Serco and Home Office. Would the same control apply to those HMOs, or are they sort of farmed out to the Home Office for their control? Does that come under the licensing control?
Yeah, thanks for letting me come in, Caroline. I know I shouldn't, but I can't sit here no longer and listen to this. Russ, thanks for coming in and putting your bit in. It's really useful, and I think you should come to the working group. I have been to the working group. I came to the first one, I think it was, or maybe the second one. I've been trying to get this done for nearly 16 years now, to try and get HMOs on the list. We can get, I think it's 5 bedrooms and above, or 4 bedrooms and above on the list, on an inspection list. It's the ones below that we can't get on the list. And that's where you do need something like the planning law. There would have to be something within planning done there where if you're going to convert even a 2-bedroom, I don't think that would qualify as an HMO, but a 3-bedroom, if you're going to convert that into an HMO, then you're going to have to try and take that through planning somehow, so that it then falls onto our radar to do it on a register, so that we have to inspect it. It's not all straightforward. If it was straightforward, we would have put some money in the budget a long time ago for this. But it can be done. You just got to, but it will be a growth item, as Dawn says. It will be a growth item. It will cost the council money, but you can just have it as sort of a self-invest, where we will put that money into it, but the money we take off the inspections will cover it. It'll be self-financing sort of pot, really, because you wouldn't do it with one person either, because you'd be playing catch up for a while. You're going to have to try and find out where all the HMOs are. Try and find out where all limited properties are, isn't it? You can't find them because it's not on a list. So there are ways forward for the working group, but you do need to get a lot more advice, and I think Russ would be really useful in the working group. Or also, you're going to have to involve planning in on this. And I think Louise would be to have some good input on this as well. But it just ain't straightforward. Otherwise, like I say, I'd have done it a long time ago. But keep up the pressure. And the reason that it's not done straight away is because there is a lot of work. So as much as some people would like it done like that, it just doesn't get done like that. Things in the council don't get done like that, and that's the way it is. Right? That's the way council works. Thank you.
Yeah, I was basically going to say what Chris has just said. Because there'd been no involvement with planning to all the HMOs that already exist. I'm just a bit concerned about how you're going to identify them if you bring in new rules, which will obviously involve ones that already exist. And just a quick question: have you got another meeting planned for HMO work group?
Yeah. Hopefully week after next, on either a Monday or Tuesday.
I've got a question about the council tax. I have a resident contact me about complaining about the number of bins outside a particular HMO. I think there's about 2 waste bins and 2 recycling bins, and they were basically left on the pavement because there's a terrace house. There's no room on the front of the terrace property to actually keep all the bins. I'm just curious if an HMO has maybe 4 adults in, it won't be licensed clearly, but those 4 adults will generally tend to create more waste than a family of 4 will, because they won't be having shared meals. If the young professionals are probably having, I don't know, generalising, ready meals that they're just sticking in the microwave and then chucking the bin. So do we have a way of, obviously it will cost the council more to collect their waste, for example. Is there any mechanism we can do to recoup those costs if they've got multiple bins, multiple recycling bins?
I was just going to say that's the sort of thing to bring to the group, really, rather than for tonight. Councillor Watkins.
I can just say that the government are actually looking at charging per room. So they're looking at changing some legislation. So and that would, but I suppose that'd be like the old poll tax really, but it won't be a straightforward one, no, but you're right. 4 or 5 adults are going to create more waste than 1 or 2, so it is something that needs looking at, but build it into the working group. Get a letter off to the MP and get her to do something about it, and also ask what she's doing about Serco as well, because that's what she's supposed to be following up.
Mr. Dybel, do you want to come back, love? Okay, so if we're done with questions, the next thing we have to do on this item is book a date, which Kelly and I have been discussing. Normally we meet on a Monday or Tuesday, and it's about 1 o'clock. And we can't do this coming week, but we can do the week after if that's convenient. Yeah, okay. Councillor Smith.
Will that be sufficient time to get the evidence that is currently being gathered? Or we're going to have a separate meeting for...
I think we'll just have to get what we can.
Okay.
And go on, Kelly, yeah.
So I think if the working group remember, we'd had a date booked in back in November. We were expecting some information back from planning regarding Article 4, and they were going to provide examples of Article 4 that had been in place in other council areas. So they were, I think, ready to bring that information back at the last meeting that was booked. But we had to cancel that one. So there is information that's already sort of been gathered that is due to come back to the next working group anyway. And I believe Sharon is also going to be, well, hopefully she'll be able to attend anyway, an update from her side as well of anything. So maybe not Tuesday, maybe a Monday then.
So can we agree on Monday the 2nd then? at 1 p.m. Yeah, and Kelly will circulate the room number. Yeah, and also extend an invitation to Mr. Dybel. Yeah, okay. Thank you. So, yes, yeah. So the next item on that issue was to elect a vice chair, because unfortunately the November meeting, my husband was had a very sudden illness and had to go to hospital. So it was all very short notice. So would anyone like to volunteer? Let's put that out there. Yeah. Elizabeth, you second it. Yeah. Shall we take a vote then? All others in favour? I think that's done then. Thank God that was easy. Thank you very much. Right, so I think we need to go back to item number 8, don't we? Yeah. Which is the integrated performance report, and we've got Steve to talk us through that, haven't we? Have we got a speaker? Oh, I think they've gone, haven't they? We haven't, no. Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I'm here, Chair. Before I go through the report summary, I've got a couple of brief points to make. Firstly, an update on the corporate performance review. At the last round of meetings, we were waiting on external support to automate the performance reporting linked to Microsoft Power BI software. I can tell you now that that commenced on the 6th of January, and currently we're scoping the project plan to establish a timeline for implementation. So I'll update more on the next round of meetings. The second point relates to previously 2 performance reports have been provided to the panel. This report and also a report by the Housing Directorate. So to avoid duplication and link to the corporate performance review, only this report is coming to the panel and will do in future, and that's with the input of the appropriate Housing Directorate officers. So moving on to the summary for the second quarter 25-26, can I refer the panel to page 14, please, of the agenda? So I'll start with the strategic risk register, which is at the bottom left of the charts. The position remains unaltered from the last quarter. Of the 5 risks within the remit of the panel, 3 are net green, 1 is net amber and 1 is net red. Again, net means given the mitigations that have been put in place. The amber risk is in relation to R25, non-compliance with freedom of information and environmental information and general data protection regulations. And the red risk is R1, provision of adequate accommodation needs. I'll move on to the right hand side with the charts and leave performance till the end. So freedom of information and environmental requests, which have a 20-day turnaround, slightly more have been received this year, 446 compared to 391 last year, and I'm advised that no high volume trends have been identified. In relation to complaints which have a 10-day turnaround, slightly less have been received this year, 727 compared to 786 last year, and also no high volume trend areas have been identified. In relation to member inquiry forms, much less have been received this year, 279 compared to 394 last year. The bulk of those are housing 129, leisure and culture 58, and they make up 67% of the total for the year. And finally, I'll move to the top left, which is performance measures. There are 48 measures within the remit of the panel. 20 of those have comparable trend data, of which 2 have improved, 12 declined, and 6 stayed the same. 22 of the measures relate to service demand. 4 have no comparable trend data, and 2 are not yet available. All of the measures details are shown on pages 15 to 20 of the agenda. And that concludes the summary, Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Does anybody have any questions? Or I think Kelly asked for some in advance but didn't receive any. Is there any sort of spontaneous questions? So that seems a no. Thank you for that, Steve.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Oh, shall I go through the recommendation? Yeah. Yeah, this report's just for noting. That's the recommendation. If no one has any comments, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is number 9, which Abu is going to. Hello, Mr. Malik. My grandson's his wife. She works at the school.
Thank you.
He loves Mrs. Malik. Anyway, go on.
Thank you for the introduction, Chair. Hopefully the panel members have been able to read what is quite a lengthy report covering performance for both Warwickshire Community Voluntary Action for the periods of Q1 and Q2 for 25 and 26, and also for the Citizen Advice Bureau. The kind of high-level summary covers broad brush their work. Within the report, there is a significant level of detail with regards to the work, the activity, the interventions, the support that both of these really valuable organisations that have been operating in the borough for a considerable period of time conduct. I think the key thing to point out would be the environment in which they are operating, as elected members will appreciate more than most, is extremely challenging. And it speaks to maybe some of the items and some of the points that were raised earlier. I think Councillor Smith raised, where the work of particularly asylum seekers and refugees, what we're finding at the moment is existing third sector organisations, some of their existing work, they have kind of developed, evolved, and engaged that cohort into existing activity, which has been great for us because we haven't had to spend or invest in necessary new activity. When you look in, particularly, some of the testimonials and some of the case studies, the work that Warwickshire Carver, they've included the work that they've done with Stockingford Community Centre, which was obviously a council asset, has now been moved into kind of ownership where there's a separate management committee. It's not easy. It's really, really difficult to run it all of a sudden through volunteers predominantly. And Warwickshire Carver is critical and key to supporting all the community centres, all of our community groups, of which the database that they have lists maybe about 500, but we're saying there could be 300 or 400 other organisations, because it's not mandatory to kind of enlist with them as an organisation. But we have got a really thriving voluntary and community sector. And again, if I speak to the report, there's some highlights, there's some pictures, and some of the elected members here. I think the Mayor was also present at the Volunteer Awards, which were held in a combined way for Nuneaton, Bedworth and North Warwickshire. I think Councillor Sarah was there. Just the great work across the spectrum of age ranges, geography, communities of interest, the work that they support together with lots of others was actually really, really eye-opening and really, really pleasing to everyone that was there. Together with that, the work that CAB do in terms of supporting people across the borough, but in areas where there are particular challenges, individually, collectively. Again, there's data within there, ward by ward, specific areas of support. Those areas don't tend to change in terms of around debt, in particular, benefits, etc. However, the work, the way in which they work, is having to adapt all the time. And if anyone has ever come into the town hall throughout the days of the week, downstairs in particular, it's as busy for them to see the CAB as they are probably to see our staff. And the beauty and the benefit of that project, which Dawn was an architect of initially, was we were sometimes seeing people lost between us referring them to CAB for support and advice, which was generally around maybe benefits, financial support, guidance. And at that time, we didn't have an actual office in Nuneaton. So they would have to leave the town hall, find a way to get to Bedworth, where the hub for CAB was. And if your issue is financial, it's kind of obvious that it's going to be quite difficult to spend money to then be able to get to Citizen Advice in Bedworth for an appointment. And again, the Citizen Advice Bureau has been brilliant in working with us and being flexible. And that in itself has been an absolute gem of an idea, and it's worked really, really beneficially. So hopefully this significant amount of information within the report. I'm happy to take any questions that elected members have.
And I'll just say, I mean, I've used the third sector organisations various times in my life, and we'd be lost without them, really. They do amazing work. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Okay, shall we give our collective thanks then if you could pass our thanks on, Abu. I mean, people like the CAB, I mean, where would we be without people like that and all the other groups? And yeah, we'd be really up the creek, wouldn't we? Without those of us who, you know, lack funding just to go and talk to a brief. But yeah, thank you for you putting this report together, and if you could pass on our thanks to all the organisations. Yeah, cheers. Anybody else want to comment? No, okay. Sorry, that takes us on to 10, which we've covered. So the forward plan is for noting, unless anyone has any questions. No. So on to the work programme, and I have asked Kelly if we can if we can have an update on the new homes, the new council homes that have been built, because I watched, I always want to say Kings Meadow, Kings View. That's because they've got Meadow. I watched Kings View going up, and we've done a lot since then. I mean, I think, you know, let's just have a look at it, and let's shout about it and be proud of what we're achieving in the borough. So this is going to be an overview rather than a scrutiny thing, and Dawn's going to add that to the work programme for us. I also asked about, because of the meeting that we had this evening and all the questions about Serco and what have you, if we could have information on that as a standing item, because there is a lot of misinformation out there, and we need to know the facts, don't we? You know, knowledge is power and all that. And sorry, yeah. I was completely unaware of what had happened to that lady. That was awful. So yeah, we'll keep up to date on things like that. If anybody else wants to add anything, just let me know, or let Kelly know if you have any ideas that you'd like to look at. Okay. So any other items? No, I've not been approached with any. Are you aware of any, Kelly, now? No, okay, well, we'll close the meeting then, and thank you everybody for your contributions and for turning up on this grim evening, and get home safely. Thanks everyone.